forward just to sharing some of my practices today, just for students to better their own mental health as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And and as Libby mentioned, I had a feeling that we needed to have this conversation because it's been a year since this pandemic started, and it's had a toll on all of our mental health. And even though it's not physical, mentally it's very important. So I guess we'll now start it off with the representative from NAMI, Kimberly Quinn, who will present resources from NAMI.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, awesome. So first of all, I want to thank you for having me here this morning. My name is Kimberly Quinn. I am the program coordinator with NAMI Ventura County. NAMI is the largest national grassroots organization dedicated to education, support, and advocacy for people living with mental health conditions as well as their families. We have a national branch. There are NAMI branches in every state, and then there are over 1,000 NAMI affiliates across the country. So NAMI Ventura County we're actually celebrating our 40th year in Ventura County this year, which is really exciting for us. Yeah, I see it out there. It's really, really exciting. So what do? We offer education, support, and advocacy. People don't come to us and expect treatment. We are not clinicians. We are people with lived experience. All of our programs are taught by what we call peers. So people who are family members or friends or loved ones supporting people with mental health challenges, teach those classes, teach those support groups. People living in recovery with mental health challenges, we teach those groups. I'm one of those people. I came to NAMI about 8 years ago, actually, as a volunteer, and I speak in the peer programs. I tell my story. It's so important, and that's something I'm going to talk about a little bit today, just how we talk about mental health. Mental health is for everyone. Mental health doesn't discriminate. It hits across all age groups, all ethnicities, all races. I mean, we're all socioeconomic. It doesn't discriminate, and so neither does NAMI. We offer classes and programs for everyone. If you just want to learn more, if you're trying to make it through your own challenges, if you're supporting or loving someone that is having challenges, if you're a parent, a teacher, a school administrator, if your career goal is to work with people with mental health challenges, we have programs for absolutely everybody. I'm not going to go through all of our programs today because, first of all, it's kind of boring, and we're kicking off this fantastic diversity festival, and I don't want to bore you with a PowerPoint presentation. So you can go to our website, which is www.namiventura.org, and you can look at our entire menu of programs. You can email us if you have questions. I'm happy to answer emails. That is info@namiventura.org. Super easy. What I want to point out before I talk a little bit more about self-care and communication is that all of our programs are 100% free. All the time, no exceptions. We don't charge for any of our programs, our program materials, any of it. Access to these programs is so important, and we never want finances to be a barrier. So all of our programs are 100% free. We also offer programs in English and Spanish, as well as, if you come to us and say, I've got this group that wants a program in another language, we are happy to accommodate that and make that work. We want to include every facet of Ventura County, all of our communities, all of our kind of sub-communities. We want to support everyone. So when I was asked to talk today, I was asked to talk about tips and tricks to promote mental health, especially during the pandemic. It's incredibly important, so important. It was important before the pandemic, but what this pandemic has done is blown up mental health in the biggest way. And I doubt very much that that's a surprise to you at all. Right now, 1 in 3 adults is reporting experiencing depression or anxiety. That number is staggering. In Ventura County alone, that's almost 220,000 adults. I mean, look left, look right. Maybe on Zoom it's a little different. Look to one side and the other side. But the people sitting next to you, if you're not experiencing challenges, they probably are. So that's why we need to talk about this and why it's so important. At NAMI Ventura County, part of what we do is pay attention to local events and local trends so that we can serve all of our communities and serve them in the best way possible. So what we actually did was sit down last spring in our conference room, distance, masks, and we started thinking about what can we do to meet this need that is going to blow up. And what we actually did was build a brand new class. It is called Community Cares. It launched in the fall, and it launched in Spanish as Cuidado entre la Comunidad in January. So we're really excited about it. And what it is really an entire class that is built and designed to promote mental wellness. How do you build mental wellness? How do you keep that going, especially at a time like this? It's built around awareness, not only about, how do I identify what's going on with my best friend, but what are my thoughts about mental health, mental wellness, self-care, and about communication, because that is so important. Reaching out, connection. And I think what we've all learned through the pandemic is that connection, when we're not face-to-face, is hard. It's a challenge. It's different. So, how do we do all those things? I'm guessing you might already have some self-care built into your life. Maybe you do yoga, maybe you meditate, maybe you're super into gratitude lists. I play roller derby. That's what keeps my balance. And self-care is really incredibly important to maintaining, our wellness, but also recovering from illness, whether that's physical or mental. The concept of self-care, though, is really, it's gotten a little warped. In our culture, we kind of have come to think of self-care as being selfish. If an activity doesn't have a measurable achievement, if, we're not getting something accomplished, we are often unable to justify taking that time out. And that's a big problem. That's a big, big problem. Self-care is actually engaging in any practice that prevents the decline of our health and well-being. It's a really simple concept, actually. So maintaining our mental wellness helps us in every area of our life, from work to school to parenting to play. It helps everywhere. But it can feel challenging. We might have barriers to engaging in self-care, either real or perceived. Money is tight, time is tight, deadlines are everywhere. How many papers do you have due this week? Most often, though, our thinking is our biggest challenge to self-care. And I want to kind of take a minute to reframe how we think about self-care. We don't need fancy things. We don't need the best gym membership. We don't need the Lululemon leggings. We might think we do, but we don't. Excuse me. We simply need to knowingly engage in practices for our own benefit. Sometimes they're big, sometimes they're small, but they're ours and they work. Self-care benefits our mind, which benefits our body. And there's no need to be the best or earn rewards. I totally stumbled on that. You can do something simply because it brings you calm or brings you joy. The last barrier to self-care that I'm going to just mention real quick is not knowing when you need it. How do you know when you need self-care? You pay attention to your thoughts, your body sensations, and your feelings to recognize when you need self-care. So you ever walk into a room and you get kind of nauseous? Or you go into you're thinking about going into a Zoom meeting and you're like, your skin starts to crawl. That's a self-care moment. It doesn't have to be a huge practice. You can take a couple deep breaths. You can, take a quick time out. But those things are so important on our day-to-day, and they don't disappear just because we're living life in a very different way now. Self-care also really involves communicating. And that's what I wanted to emphasize today. How do you talk about mental health? How do you talk about wellness? How do you reach out when you suspect somebody you love is having trouble? How do you reach out before they're having trouble? How we talk about it and how often we talk about mental health is incredibly important. The more we talk about it, the more comfortable everyone around us is. I mentioned early on that I am what we term a peer. That means I live with mental health challenges. I am a suicide survivor. I make a point in my life to be very, very open at all times about mental health. Even on my social media, that is one of the ways that I am not only an ally, but I'm an advocate and I self-advocate. In my family, we have shorthand. My husband can ask me, "Are you safe? Which means, are you doing okay? Do you need help?" And so communicating and talking about it is so important. And that's why I'm so glad that we are starting here this morning with your survey, because I had noticed in it that so many questions and so many answers revolve around that. So let's keep talking about it. Back to you, Colin.
Thank you, Kimberly. And now we'll move on to Mary and Steve from the BC Health Center to present their the resources on campus at Ventura College. Mary, I think you're muted.
You are correct. I was muted. I wanted to take a quick second to thank Colin. He is on the Safety and Wellness Committee with me here at Ventura College. And he approached me months and months ago to say, we really need to do something about mental health. And he continued that discussion to the point of where we are today. So I really want to commend Colin as a student for taking the initiative and reaching out for help. And I think it's just super great, all that everybody is doing for this week. The Student Health Center has been around since the early 80s, so we're not new to the campus. Every single student pays a student health fee, which at this point is $21 per semester, and it's $18 for summer. So that entitles you to see the counselors. And in this time of COVID, we don't post a lot of restrictions on how often you can see your counselor because it's so variable on what people need. The counselors at the health center are Andrew Nelson, who is the marriage and family therapist. He's the licensed practitioner. If you want to make an appointment with Andrew, he is back from paternity leave. He has a little girl, Faye, she was just born April 1st. So that shows you Andrew's dedication to students. He wanted to get back to be available to the students he already reaches out to. Secondly, we have Steve Lim, and Steve is on this Zoom call with me. Steve is a social worker intern. He has been with me a little over 2 years, and he's been really an asset to the health center. The newest addition is Camille Black. She's an MFT associate. She had planned to be on this call, but due to a conflict with her other job, she was unable to be here, but she is also available to see students. COVID-19 has unfortunately presented many unique and unusual challenges for staff, as well as students, as well as the community. There are many questions that have arisen due to the COVID outbreak. For example, how are we keeping people safe who come on campus? And I'm very proud to tell you that through the screening process, thanks to the support of the administration, we have been able to maintain a safe and healthy environment for the people who come to each of the campuses. Each of us does it a little bit differently, but every campus has a screening process. And this will be maintained. A lot of people were concerned that now that people were being vaccinated, this would go away. It's not going away. You still get to keep your mask as your best friend. We still need you to socially distance. And of course, as we always keep saying, wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. We do have one additional counselor, Sal Sandoval, and he is the direct supervisor for any of the LCSW interns like Steve. He is part-time at the health center, whereas the other three are available full-time. One of the issues that we've found through the health center has been the increase of need to be seen, to be listened to be heard. So many of our students have lost family members due to the COVID. They've lost their jobs. They may have lost their residence. They may have experienced suicidal ideation and thoughts for the first time in their life as they feel powerless against the COVID. Many students had tremendous difficulty with the isolation that was forced upon them when we made you stay at home. Granted, on many levels, you could understand that was a safety precaution, but on other levels, you were so used to being out and about and living your life. This was a tremendous, difficult situation for so many people. But perhaps the biggest elephant in the room is having to do this. Students are on Zoom, they're on Canvas, they don't get to really physically interact with the teacher or the other students in their class. That just leads to lots and lots of anxiety, lots of depression, a lot of fatigue, a lot of withdrawal from people, a whole lifestyle change for just about everybody. COVID has impacted everybody. It doesn't care whether you're young or old or what your ethnicity or if you're poor or if you have money. One of the worst parts with COVID is it has severely impacted the communities of color, which is really unfortunate because some are afraid to reach out for help because we have had a stigma for so many years about mental health. Because we here at Ventura have gone into so many classrooms and I have taken a counselor with me, I want the students to see exactly what Kimberly was talking about. It's perfectly okay to experience a mental health issue and to talk about it and to ask for help. We really are encouraging each of you. If you have a question, please put it in the chat. Steve or I are happy to answer them for you. If it's a question you'd rather not put in the chat, my last name is Jones, so it's real easy, mjones@vccd. So please feel free to contact me that way and I'll be happy to talk with you on the phone or respond to you via email. The service is free to you. You paid the health fee. Please take advantage of it. We're here Monday through Friday. Someone from my staff will be answering the phones. It's a very simple process to get in to see one of our counselors. There's very minimal wait time. Usually we can get you in the very next day or that day. Referrals also come to me from your instructors. The instructor will notice that you've been on Zoom or Canvas and then suddenly you're not there anymore. So they will send a bit report to me just saying, hey, I'm worried about this student. Or some of you self-disclose to your instructor, I'm having problems getting food, problems with depression. My family member has died. The instructor will once again reach out to the health center. So we have a very tight-knit family at Ventura, which I'm very proud of. And we hope to encourage more students to reach out and ask for help if they need it. Thank you once again to all of my fellow panelists. This is going to be a great week.
And
Thank you, Mary Jones. We really appreciate. Thank you to both Mary Jones and Kimberly Quinn. We really appreciate your presentation of resources to our community. Now we're going to start with our discussion, and I know new people have joined in the attendees. So for the student leaders in this call, could we, if it's fine, if we could introduce ourselves again? So my name is Colin Braza. I am the Director of External Affairs at ASVC, the student government here at Ventura College. And that's great to be here. I'll pass it now on to Alina.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lena, and I serve as the Public Relations Officer on the Associated Students Government Board at Ventura College, and I'm glad to be here helping as a student panelist today.
Thank you, Alina. We'll now pass it on to Lorena.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lorena. My name is Lorena, and I am president of college.
I think you cut out there a bit, Lorena, while you were speaking, or.
Oh, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, you're much more clear now.
Okay. Hi, my name is Lorena Ortiz, and I am the Oxnard College ASG president. and I'm here to speak on mental health and erasing the stigma.
Thank you. And finally to Natasha.
Hello, everyone. My name is Natasha Banks. I'm a sociology student at Oxnard College, and I look forward to speaking and sharing some tips with you guys today.
Thank you. And to start off our conversation, we're going to be using a survey that was passed around last week that was given to students on our ASVC bio. We received a lot of good responses. And the first question that we'll start off on is, when the vaccine is available, do you plan to be vaccinated? So I personally have gotten vaccinated. This is because I live at home with a high risk person who is disabled, and I take care of him. He's my brother due to medical reasons. So yeah, I understand. So I have gotten the vaccine, and it's understandable because when I got the vaccine, it was very nerve-wracking because it's a new thing. It's not like, I can understand the fears and the tremulations before receiving the vaccine, but I personally feel fine, and I feel better now that I know that my brother can be safe. Know that there's a less risk of him getting COVID from me or my other family members. So to pass on the question of how do you feel about the vaccine, and if you plan to get it, we'll pass it on to Lorena. How do you feel about it?
What I have to feel about it, I'm glad that we are able to get the vaccine now, right? It was offered to me, and I'm going to be getting my second shot. So everyone in my household has gotten, except my kids who are under the age of 18. My in-laws, both of them have it. I live with my in-laws. We take care of them due to the fact of COVID. And they are over 80. My partner also has a shot. So it's very important and I understand that some people don't, it's like you said, it's fairly new, right? But tomorrow's not promised. We could die of anything at any time, and this is something that anyone could take it if they want. If they don't want to, that's fine. We have certain rules in my house, right? Because we take care of other people, and it's not just me. So if you can, do it. And if you're worried about it, you should get more answers from the right people.
Thank you, Lorena. Now I'll pass it on to Natasha.
Yes, so I also have had the opportunity to be vaccinated. That choice was for me. All of my family lives in the Midwest, so to be able to travel safely to see them and then also see relatives that have pre-existing conditions. So for me, it was really family-based on my decision, just so I can safely travel to see them and start celebrating holidays with them again.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to Lena.
I myself have not gotten vaccinated yet, but I know that I will plan on doing it if it gives me a chance to go back to the college campus, because in order to take safety precautions and all, I know that it would probably be a requirement to get vaccinated. But I do live in a household where both of my parents are frontline workers and they've gotten vaccinated. So I do plan on getting vaccinated sometime soon.
Yeah, thank you for that response. And Mary Jones, I know that you mentioned stigmas about mental health, and there's also stigmas regarding the vaccines, especially with our history. Many minority communities have an aversion to getting the vaccine due to the history of being racially persecuted in their medicine. So to clear up the stigmas could you help us clear up the stigmas about the vaccines and what they provide and what the actual facts are?
I'm happy to do that, Colin. I think one of the students brought it up. I think it was Lorena, and basically she said, make sure you get your information from an accurate source. The myths that are out there are really mind-boggling to a certain extent. For example, one of the interesting myths was it will affect my fertility. and in particular, male fertility. First of all, that makes absolutely no sense. And second of all, it's not true. There's also a rumor that I really had hoped had been put to bed a long time ago, that when we did the vaccine, we actually put a chip in your arm. No, we are not the phone company or whatever. You're just getting the vaccine, just like you would get a tetanus shot if you needed it. That's still a vaccine. The thing that scares people the most is the side effect profile. So individuals have their own individual reactions. For example, when I was vaccinated, and I chose to do that because I do physicals directly with students, and as part of the physical, they have to actually take down their mask. So I don't want them to feel that they are at risk from me under any circumstance. So I chose right away to be vaccinated. But the side effect profile, when I received my vaccinations on the second dose of Moderna, I had some fatigue, and then it was gone in 24 hours or less than that, probably 12 hours. Other students who have had the vaccine have had chills. They've had tremendous fatigue. They've had low-grade fever. They've had the shakes. And once again, for the most part, within a day, those side effects are gone. I did speak with one student that the side effects prevailed for 2.5 days, but that's the rare exception. The other question that comes up is one vaccine worse than the other as far as side effects. Pfizer is the one you do it would be a 3-week return policy. Moderna's 4 weeks, and Johnson & Johnson is the easy one. One time, you're done. The side effects are individual. So I can't say, if I were you, I'd get Johnson & Johnson, you won't have any problem, because that's not true. We don't know. But does it affect the people that it affects more or have greater side effects is if you've actually had COVID yourself. There's a misconception that I've had COVID, therefore I don't need to be vaccinated. That's not true. Your ability to repel COVID lasts for about 3 months. I'm working with a student here who was diagnosed in December, and he just got it again April 1st. So don't be under the misinformation that you don't need it because you've already had it, because it's mutating. Remember that we have the South American variant, we have the UK variant, and we have the South Africa variant. The one that's primarily here right now is the UK one, and it's running through Michigan, if anybody watches the news. So is it a safe vaccine? Yes. Did they roll it out fast? Yes, but we had to. We did that with H1N1 when we had that. Some of you may have been on the campus during that time. So the FDA is extremely stringent, which is why we don't have AstraZeneca yet. So you have to realize that nobody wants to put anybody's life at risk. Am I going to convince everybody they should absolutely be vaccinated? Absolutely not. There are some people who have severe allergies and don't want to do it. There are people who have a pre-existing condition and they're scared that it's going to make it worse. Although the data shows it's better if you have had cancer or lupus or whatever, that you actually have the vaccine. The only one that the research is still a little bit on is Guillain-Barré. If you had a flu shot and you developed the side effect of Guillain-Barré, which is a muscle weakness, you would know if you had it, then the jury is out on that one. It's been shown to be safe in pregnancy and breastfeeding. So I've done a tremendous amount of research. I've had a tremendous amount of people vaccinated. You can just look at the data. Certainly are going to be pockets of people who are felt racially profiled by the medical profession. Studies are coming out now all the time saying, wait a minute, I don't get the same quality of care because I'm not white. So that's something that we in the medical profession have to rectify. We have to change that. That's terrible, terrible data. So there's a lot out there, but if you have a question and you're scared, please feel free. If you contact me through the health center, then you're going to be covered by HIPAA. And that's the rule that I can't tell anybody what you told me. I can tell your mother, your boyfriend, your sister, doesn't matter. I can't tell anybody. In the webinar, I'm allowed to discuss cases as long as I don't use contact information. Somebody was asking about when was HIPAA in place. If you stop me and I'm out at the screening center and you start asking me a bunch of questions about, will I get this, will I get that? That's not covered under HIPAA because I'm not in the health center working as the nurse, I'm working as a screener. So I hope that clarifies it. If, however, you see me in the market where people love to come up and talk to me and you say, Mary, I don't want you to say anything to anybody, then I would respect your wishes and not to say anything. All of my staff is under HIPAA, including Steve, all the counselors, everybody's under HIPAA. That's probably way more than you wanted. Sorry, Colin.
No worries. Thank you so much. You brought up a lot of good information about misinformation and how it can play into our fears, especially that have been quadrupled and like magnified due to the pandemic and being locked indoors.
Right.
I think this conversation is vitally important to bring up because vaccines are becoming far more easier to obtain and get. As you all may know, the state government plans to offer vaccines for everyone 16 and older by April 15, which is in 3 days, and they plan to open up the state entirely by June 15th. I know how people have gotten kind of now used to the lockdown, but I think with the upcoming vaccine distribution and the rates are going up, it's important to talk about how what vaccines are and how how we feel about them, because a lot of people have been racially discriminated, as I've mentioned before, about over in medicine, and it's important to get this rectified so that we can return back to normal. Thank you. Before we, does anyone think that we are good to move on to the next question, or does anyone, especially in the audience, have any thoughts or suggestions? Just ask them in the Q&A if you have.
Colin, while we're waiting for people to ask questions in the Q&A on that, I want to point out that, yes, absolutely, we have a horrible history of ethnic discrimination, coming out of the, medical research for sure. But I want to add in that when we talk about those groups, we're also talking about people with invisible disabilities, like mental health challenges. And there, historically is some reluctance there as well, because there can be an amount of discrimination with that group as well. So I just think it's important to point out that invisible disabilities are very much, often we're seeing stigma, we're seeing, certain discriminations there as well.
Yeah, thank you, Kimberly. And invisible discriminations, like they do exist, and thank you for bringing it up. It's really important that we continue to address all types of discrimination. None of them are none is more important. They're all equal, and they all need to be addressed. Thank you. I think it's time we can move on to the next question on our survey, which is, are you forward to returning back to school? I'll start off. I feel kind of excited, but kind of nervous to return back to school. It's been a year, and I've kind of gotten used to, as I mentioned before, to become to the Zoom environment, to the online environment. And although I like to talk how I wish to return back to on-campus learning, it's a bit nerve-wracking because it's like my first time going to college as a freshman, because it's been so long since I've been there. I don't know how the social norms or where do I sit. I have a feeling it'll be awkward, but that's just me. To start for this conversation, I'll move on to Aline. How do you feel about returning to school on campus?
I feel like that I'm looking forward to it because it would be my first time on the campus. I was an incoming freshman this year, and I never really got to experience like that college experience in person. And I feel that, I guess one thing I noticed that I miss from being in an actual like school face-to-face would be that like one-on-one connection with my professors or a teacher as I had in high school, just because it just feels so different with everything either being strictly online courses or just meeting on Zoom. And I just feel that I guess I really miss the, like I just said, I guess face-to-face connection. And that's really my view on it.
Yeah, thank you. I'll move on to Lorena. How do you feel about?
Oh my God, I'm so excited. I need to be around people. I need that human connection, and I haven't had that. And, that has been a big part of, my mental state of mind, emotionally. The one thing I am going to, have been practicing for the day that we go back to school is not hugging. I'm a hugger. And I know that now, things will, I know, and this is my opinion, that things will never go back the same, right? Because this has really put people on edge, and not just that, just more awareness. So I've been practicing, like I said, I've been practicing not hugging on people and even asking them, is it okay? Can I hug you? But I'm like, can we start like last month, maybe 6 months ago, right? I do have to give out shout out to Oxnard College because they have done a remarkable job with having the way that they do the check-in process and our CTE classes that have been open this whole entire time. So they've done a remarkable job that, I'm like, what's the problem? Why can't we go back to school? They're doing a good job. So let's go. Right. But I'm super excited. Even though I'm not going back to Oxford College because I'm transferring, I'm excited. I really am. Because again, I need that human connection.
Yeah, that's really important, especially since we've been, although the experiences differ, a lot of people felt this isolation, and I can see that. Yeah. I'm now moving on to Natasha. How have you been feeling?
I've been feeling excited to go back to campus, especially now that people are being vaccinated. The cases are a lot lower. I was a returning student, so I've never been on the Oxnard College campus. Well, I've been like twice maybe, but not with the whole school setting, with people in classroom being able to interact with my classmates. To Lorena's point, I love in-person interaction, and we haven't been able to do that. And we've been in a lot of classes, so I feel like I know her, but I recognize other people in other classes, but we don't have that like same connection that we would have if, let's say, we were on campus and we're actually physically in the same classroom as each other multiple times during the week.
Thank you. So yeah, online learning is an experience. I personally didn't. I actually used it on my freshman year for an art class, so I was used to being involved in it, to using Canvas and being acquainted with it. I like to pose another question. How did you guys feel about transitioning to Canvas back in the pandemic? And have you guys gotten used to it? And you prefer it? Or do you prefer the remote learning through Canvas and Zoom over the future of returning back to campus and in person? Start off with Lorena again.
How do I feel about going back to campus?
How do you feel about how did you feel during your transition to Canvas, and do you prefer it of Canvas and Zoom over in-person learning?
No.
No.
And absolutely not. I was forced to learn technology, and I've gotten better. I'm better at technology than I was before I started, right? Mm-hmm. But no, I prefer, again, on campus. I don't. I can't. It doesn't help me retain. I have anxiety. I get, I have dyslexia. So the online Canvas does not help me. I'm learning to, live with it. But if I could go back to the way it used to be, I learn better. I retain better. My mental health is more stable. I'm emotional present, you know. It's been very difficult on campus for me. I am a mother and I have kids elementary, high school, and even in college. And again, taking care of my mother-in-law who has dementia and it's aggressive. Being on Zoom and on Canvas, I can't concentrate, right? Some people can, my partner, some of my kids, they could just block the whole stuff that's going on. I can't. My mental, you know, I'm thinking about my mother-in-law. I'm listening. Like right now, we have cameras, and I'm looking as we're talking to the Zoom. I'm looking at the cameras just to make sure she's okay, and that's me all day long. So I can't wait till we go back on campus. Go back on campus, please.
Yeah, thank you for that, Lorena. And I'll move on to Natasha. Do you like the transition to? How did you feel about the transition, and do you prefer it over in-person learning?
Personally, when I first came into Oxnard College, it was last summer. So I learned the summer class that I was taking was already online. So I got to learn the ins and outs of Canvas. I do like Canvas learning just because then I can kind of check in or watch the lectures and portions. But I do prefer in learning or at least some type of hybrid learning. So you can get that interaction, like I was mentioning earlier, with your classmates, with instructors, professors, but also some things are just easier to learn. Like for me specifically, I'm taking my second semester of Spanish, and I just feel like some of that is a lot easier to learn in person rather than I'm watching the lectures online and I'm like just repeating what my instructor says. So there's some classes that I think I would be content with keeping learning through campus, but then definitely there's those interactive classes that would be so much more beneficial and students could get so much more learning out of if they were in person.
Yeah, thank you. And finally, to Alina, do you prefer the remote learning or the in-person learning?
I think I would prefer in person, partially just because I feel it's more harder for me online. I know a lot of students probably feel the same way I do. And it's just more hard, I guess, to concentrate and find time. As though most people think it would be opposite, like, oh, I'd have more time being at home. But I tend to get like more distracted. So I feel like in person it had me on like schedule. Oh, I had class at this time, homework was due this day and this time. And just was like some self-paced courses as well. Just being strictly online or having no Zoom is kind of harder, I guess, not being able to really connect with my professor and others. So I think I would just prefer in person more.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, for me, it kind of was unfortunate for me because during the pandemic, all my major prep classes were online, which kind of was unfortunate. But I'm still glad that I was able to get that education regardless during a pandemic through Zoom online learning to keep my family safe, to keep my brother safe. And even though there's downsides, I look to the upsides of making sure my family stays safe. So I know there was thank you. I know there was a question posited to the in the Q&A over a celebratory experience. I think Steve Lim, you said that you would be available to ask that.
I was going to I can speak towards that. I was also going to speak towards some of the responses that we got from Lorena and Natasha and all of y'all regarding just returning to classes and that sense of social isolation. So unfortunately, yes, we're taking classes online. Yes, we can see each other's faces, but just staring at a screen provides such a different I guess, social experience. And in fact, it activates different parts of our brain that our social brain isn't activated, isn't engaged when we're staring at a screen, that there's a uniqueness about being able to see each other in person, actually see essentially that, well, as a computer would render, a 3D model of ourselves, except for in person. And that it starts to allow for that, those biochemical responses to say, hey, we're socially engaged, we're engaging with one another. And that's really something we missed out on. And yes, we've been using Zoom. Yes, we've been trying to stay connected over phone call. And it's difficult because, again, it's just not activating, it's not releasing those same chemical responses to help us feel connected. And so that's really something we lost out on. And with face masks, same thing. We're not seeing this much of our face. That's all nonverbal social cues that make us feel connected. And we lost out on so much of that. And so it makes a lot of sense that we are really craving those interactions and craving that sense of returning so that we can get those things back. With that being said, we're also very adaptive. We adjust really well to changes in our life. As much as we hate it, as much as we'd rather return to normal, we all did amazing at adjusting. And to the other point with virtual learning and kind of being confined to our homes, it's really hard to create that separation. That just going to different environments is so helpful for us to compartmentalize, to say, okay, I'm on campus now, I can focus just on school. Whereas being at home, for instance, I'm in my own little office space that's separate from my bedroom, that's separate from different areas, to say, this is where I go to work. This is my workspace. And therefore it's easier for my brain to comprehend that, okay, this is what I'm working on here, versus being at home, potentially having to be in the living room, because not all of us have the luxury of having our own space. Then it's, well, we associate the living room with what? Play. So we're more likely to be distracted. We're more likely to get disengaged for whatever reason. We have our entire families at home. They don't really understand what it's like to be a student. They don't understand those components. So it's hard to get that separation, because this is the area where you're used to being a parent or a child. And so your parents will engage it as such. And that's one of the things that we really had to adapt to and try to make work. And with returning to campus, we have that sense of camaraderie of just being like, okay, we're all students, we're all here to learn. And it really does help create that separation to make everything more enriching. And to, I guess, speak to the point of the Q&A question, in terms of celebration, yes, we should try to figure out a way to, something to get excited about, because I think that's something we really missed out on. We had so much of our life taken away, and it really does feel like we are at that point where we can want to celebrate, but it's also that precautionary note of, well, the current environment that we're in with COVID and everything, that celebrations are difficult, but those are necessary to kind of, again, help create that sense of something to look forward to in COVID.
Thank you, Steve, and the campus leaders as well, to the person who addressed that question. They thank you for your suggestion, and they'll bring it back to bringing that back up for discussion. So I know there's yeah, thank you once again, guys. I really like how this conversation is going. We're doing a lot of good input with each other and bringing up a lot of interesting discussion and conversation. Yeah. So next question on the survey, which I think would be good, would be what type of problems or obstacles have we encountered during this past year during COVID? So for me, one of the main, and I know this has been it's kind of been addressed through our questions, but this is now regarding this directly. So for me, the main distractions have been, like a lot of people said, my family. I live in a household of 7 people, so it's very crowded, and just in general, sometimes just not having the motivation to do so. It just becomes doing the discussion posts are fun at first, after the first couple times, but then they get repetitive and you're just doing the same thing, and then you lose confidence and motivation in yourself. And sometimes it take me like a couple days to get that back. So that's been a struggle for me. I'll pass it on to Natasha. What have been your greatest struggles during this in a remote learning?
I agree. I think just the distractions that having at home, like for me, my desk is in my bedroom. So it's like I wake up and I see my computer. I go to sleep, I see my computer. So that's something for me that has really been something I kind of have to schedule my time, because I try to say like, oh, I'm not going to work on homework past a certain date, to kind of give myself a little bit of a schedule so then I can do other things, and that helps me with distractions. So instead of thinking, oh, I could do this instead of homework right now, it's like, oh, like you only have till 7 p.m. to work on homework, to watch your lectures, and then you can do something fun later. So for me, just being at home, but also on the positive side of that, just making more structured schedule at home as I can.
Yeah, thank you for that. Lorena, how do you feel?
Well, I mean, you guys all said the lack of motivation. Again, I'm a person who needs to be around people. I'm a people person. I'm an extra, and extrovert, right? And I need to feed off other people's energy to give me energy, right? I suffer from depression. I challenge depression, and again, anxiety, PTSD. So, and I say challenge because I've learned and I've been educated about that. And I have the tools, right? And because I speak on it, there's a stigma on there. And I wasn't on medication, but because of the way I was feeling, I'd be crying in class all of a sudden, and I'd just be sad. And I made a decision to go back on medication to help me. And it's been helping, right? And, there's nothing wrong with taking medication to make you feel better, right? It's only a problem when you don't follow the directions on the label, right? And I like to talk about, about mental health, because it's almost like they said, like Kimberly said, it doesn't discriminate, and we all have it, but some of us don't choose to talk about it. And sometimes when we don't talk about it, it can lead to other stuff, right? Like Natasha said, I take one step and I'm at my desk. I have a partner and I miss him. And we sleep in the same bed together, but I miss him because of me being busy on the computer, right? My classes mostly of them are asynchronous. I have 2 that are on Zoom. And even then, I am busy with a lot of meetings. And I'm going to go ahead and take the meetings and be involved with the meetings because I see this interaction, right? And this is what I need. This is what I need. I'll text my friends, I'll do little videos. I'll try to FaceTime them all, because I need that interaction. My kids, I can't tell you the last time I actually cooked a meal at my house. It's been months because I'm just here and trying to concentrate, trying to get back into motivate myself to do the work. I can honestly say, and I'm not embarrassed, because I know the student that I am. I know how smart I am. But my ability to do the work that I usually would do if I was on campus is not the same. It's not the same. And I struggled with that because it was hard for me to get motivated. It's hard for me to think of a topic. I wrote a paper 9 different times and didn't even get to the second sentence, right? And it's because of that lack of interaction. I utilize my professor's time, office hours. I was there. I'll take time, and now we get 15 minutes. And what I do, I'll click on 2 more extra 45 minutes, right? If I know there's more time. But that stuff all has been the reason why I chose to go back on medication, the crying, the not feeling motivated. I mean, I'll be okay with wearing the same clothes up to 4 or 5 days. And then someone told me, you didn't take a shower, Mom. But I don't gotta go nowhere. But again, if you don't know what I'm talking about, then you should find out what I'm talking about. I'm sure that you have seen people around you, your friends, family members, who are probably are doing what I'm describing, right? Some of us don't, some people that deal with mental health don't want to talk about it. But even though they don't want to talk about it, they need that extra push. They need that someone, come on, talk about it. You know, they need that. And I'll be that person for those people who don't want to talk about it. You know, Oxnard College, we have the social hour, you know, every Tuesday from 11 to 12 p.m. And we have, I can't even tell you, we have the bomb, incredible, remarkable, phenomenal counselors, right? And they listen. The 6 visits, like you said, we get with our student fee. When I found that out, I was on it, and I'm big on that. Deanne, our nurse, when we were on campus, she would go to our classrooms, and till this day, I have it. And I would go to the health office to get extra ones because I pass out the need help courage card, right? But yeah, there has been a lot that has affected me mentally, emotionally, because of the pandemic, you know. But there's a lot of help out there. There's a lot of help out there. And it's disappointing when people that don't know about the health, the disease of mental health, and they put us down, right?
And to speak to that point, there is an important connection between where the current pandemic, this national pandemic that has kind of affected all of us, and its effect on mental health. Essentially, our life has been uprooted from whatever we were doing to this new way of living. On top of that, there's this sense of, the lack of safety that we all feel because we could be a silent carrier of COVID. And all of that does impact our ability to feel motivated. It impacts our brain function. To use my favorite analogy is, what good is your cognitive reasoning if you're getting chased by a tiger? That's what our experience has been in the pandemic. It's that essentially our life is being threatened, and our brain is operating from this place of fight or flight. It's operating from a place of we're threatened. So brain functioning, motivation, what good are all of those if a tiger is about to attack you in the next second? That's why we feel numb. That's why we have digestive issues. Especially as students, it's hard to get our brains to work and to focus on the classwork when in the back of our head, we're thinking our entire lives have been uprooted. We could be sick. We could get someone sick. The person next to us could be sick, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That all of those things impact our overall sense of well-being, our cognitive functioning, and therefore it affects our ability to even be good students. It affects our ability to be present. It affects our ability to even want to socially engage. As Lorena said, sometimes we don't even have the motivation to shower. We don't have the motivation to even do the Q&A question. And we shame ourselves because it's like, we look at ourselves from the past. We look at ourselves from how well we are as a student. And then we look at ourselves now, it's like, what's wrong with us? But in reality, we also have to put in the environmental factor. Our environment doesn't feel safe right now. It's like our back door is unsafe because there's a pandemic out there. And we're constantly reminded, we're constantly reinforced by this because there's that lack of normal functioning. We're wearing masks every day. That's not something any of us really did on a daily basis. At least I doubt it. I'm sure there's some people. And so there's this constant reminder of just us coming toward this desk, coming to be on class on Zoom. That reinforces this trauma that we're all experiencing, that we're not in the safe environment that we used to be in. And so to normalize that, we're not going to be as great of a student as we can be. And that there's no reason to feel bad about it. We're that just as much as we've been knocked down because of everything in the pandemic, we're going to need that additional support. And that additional support doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. It's the same model we kind of use when it comes to psychiatric medication. It's meant to be a Band-Aid so that you can start getting to that place where we're not in our fight or flight, so that we can start supporting ourselves, start building ourselves up to being okay.
Can I jump in real quick? Lorena said something that I really feel is brilliant. Lorena, you said something brilliant. Thank you. You said that some people just don't know how to talk about it. And you're absolutely right. We don't have these conversations growing up necessarily. I grew up in a culture where you didn't talk about it. It was what's said here, what's done here stays here. So I didn't know how to talk about it, but that's something that we all can learn. there are resources out there. You can come take a NAMI class. You will get that education about, oh, Lorena's crying in class. Yeah, we can identify that as an issue. We can reach out and see what's going on. We can learn how to build that vocabulary and build those resources so that we can reach out and really care for everybody in our community really openly. But yeah, that's a thing that we just don't necessarily learn growing up. I think that is changing a little bit now, but it's certainly not everywhere yet. So I think it's really great to acknowledge that sometimes we just don't have the vocabulary, we don't have the background, but we can get it.
Exactly what Kimberly said. We're normalizing, or at least our culture has really normalized this. We have to be well, we have to be happy. We don't talk about these uncomfortable feelings. And in essence, it creates this boogeyman, this clouded figure, this clouded monster that we can't identify. So how are we supposed to start having that dialogue if we've never really acknowledged it, we never looked at it, if it's always been something we hide in the closet? We can't identify what we're feeling. We can't identify these emotional experiences because, well, how are we supposed to talk about our symptoms? How are we supposed to talk about what we're experiencing if we've never learned the language to acknowledge it?
Yeah. Thank you for everyone participating in that discussion. Really, really thoughtful and brings up a lot of good points. Yeah. Alina, I know you might have been blown a bit by that conversation, but I've to ask you, how have you been feeling about it, being your problems and obstacles regarding this during this year?
Yeah, for this year, I feel like the main problems or obstacles I had was, I guess it really revolved around the same type of issue, like lack of motivation, because I really felt at one point like I wasn't necessarily learning that much. I was just there taking notes, or they were forcing myself to do the work that was just really mainly just turning in assignments like before 11:59. That's really how I guess I saw it, like, oh, assignments due tonight, okay, I have to do it now, or have to like kind of make myself, because I'm more of a visual learner, I guess, and when I'm in person, I tend to really get a better perspective of it, what I'm learning or the topic. And just watching online videos has been like really a hassle for me. And I feel that I do miss in-person learning, but I know that there's really necessarily no one or nothing to blame. I mean, if it was a pandemic that happened, and I'm still thankful that I was able to at least take courses at Ventura College and still get my education still going, and at least it wasn't put to a pause or something over this. And just mainly, I guess the obstacles were just really feeling not motivated on most days to do my work, and that was really it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's motivation, lack of motivation, struggles with technology. A lot of these things you guys emphasize in your conversations were, in fact, a lot of what emphasized in the student survey. So especially trying to stay focused and all of that. So I'd like to posit the question towards Mary and Kimberly. I know Kimberly touched on this a bit, but how do you deal with things such as motivation loss, technology fatigue, especially since we're on Zoom 24/7, and the lack of focus?
Well, I don't know that you actually can deal with it, because every time you turn around, somebody else wants you on a Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
Not taking your name in vain or anything, Colin, but
I know, but I meant more towards of like tips on how to manage.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what Kimberly was saying. What is your self-care? What do you do for you? That is something that is special and valuable to you, whether it's a walk around the block, go to the beach, pray. A lot of people have prayed tremendously during this pandemic. It could be yoga, it could be meditation. Maybe after you've had a successful day, you have a piece of candy. It doesn't have to be a complicated thing, but it has to be something that's unique and special for you. I mean, we've all at some point or another seen that commercial where the mom has all the kids screaming, and I guess maybe dad finally comes home and she goes in the bathroom with her Pepperidge Farm cookies and she just sits in the bathtub eating cookies because it's like her time. And I think we forget that because many of the students did not drop their load. They're still taking 3, 4, 5 classes. I met one the other day. She's taking 6 classes. I wouldn't do that without the pandemic. So, you've got to admire what these students are willing to do on top of Zoom. Many are still trying to work. They've got little ones, like Lorena shared. They're caretakers for elderly parents or relatives. I mean, they're doing astronomical feats that they don't give themselves credit for. I mean, everybody on this Zoom should be patting their own back saying, hey, you're really doing a good job. You're in a pandemic. I mean, think about it. We're not just saying, well, Tuesday we're going to have pandemic day, but Wednesday will be hurricane day. I mean, we're stuck here. And I haven't met anyone who said, I'm so glad we're in a pandemic. I mean, nobody says that. So they were talking about celebration. And one of the things that I'm sure the other screeners thought I was nuts, but we do have automotive, and we had all the nursing students, and photography was here, and ceramics was here. And so we had all these little holidays. So I got those big blow up doll things. And so I put something out for Halloween and Thanksgiving and Christmas and Valentine's Day and St. Patrick's Day, and gave the kids candy. I said, 6 a.m, hey, do you want a piece of candy for later? They're like looking at me, what are you, oh lady, you crazy or what? But if we don't bring joy to each other, how do you bring joy on a Zoom? So it's the community. We have to support each other. I think what Lorena said is you have to go the extra mile. Natasha mentioned it too. You have to go that extra mile. You don't want to, but you have to for our own sanity, for our own mental health. I mean, what keeps me from not being depressed today? I have to really look at that every day and go, okay, I want this to end. I don't want to wear a mask ever again. I don't want to hear the word Zoom ever again. It's going out of my vocabulary if we ever get through this. But I have to do something that says, you know what, Mary, you're doing the best you can with what you can do. And as your reward, you get to whatever it is. And for me, I meditate. So I think we all have to find that special thing that will allow us and reach out for help. Kimberly has said it a million ways, reach out for help. A lot of kids will call the suicide hotline, not because they intend to hurt themselves. Maybe they only have a sort of a plan, but they need to talk to another human being who's not going to judge them, who's just going to listen, and who's going to say, okay, so tell me what you've done for yourself today. Tell me how I can help you feel better. Listening is so critical during this pandemic. It's the one skill we have. We don't get to hug anybody. We don't get to smell their perfume. We don't get to touch anybody. So the one thing we do have is our empathy, and we need to use it and value it and listen. Just listen. Take the time to listen. Maybe you feel like you don't want to hear one more COVID story. I agree. I don't want to hear one more COVID story, but am I going to listen and be thankful that that's not my COVID story, that it didn't hurt my family? Nobody died from COVID in my family. I'm grateful for that every day. So I try to take some gratitude every day, try to do one special thing for myself. And I'm very thankful that I get to do physicals because I'm very much like Lorena. I have to have students around me. I love to talk and learn what they're learning and see how out of date my thinking is. I mean, they educate me every day. So basically, in a long-winded way, there you go, Colin.
I'm a big believer in not necessarily silver linings, but I'm a really big believer in finding the hidden gifts behind things. I really feel like my challenges with mental health put me in a great position to be there for other people and to teach other people. And that's the gift to me. So interestingly, the gift for me that came out of the pandemic is having to stand up for my own boundaries. I'm a perfectionist from way back. My husband and I have been together 10 years, and he just leveled to me that he thinks I'm a overworker, that I'm a workaholic. Like 10 years, he just told me. So, I'm one of those people who's always saying yes and always going, and, gonna do everything. And I had to realize I'm just like Lorena and Mary. I'm an energy vampire. I love being around other people. That's how I keep myself going. And I had to realize that I was getting burnt out really quickly, not having those outlets. And so I had to start enforcing some boundaries for myself and saying, no, I can't do this. Or, I can't do this today. I'm done today. It's 4:00 in the afternoon and I'm going to curl up under my desk because I just can't. This is my no point. And so really learning what my boundaries were and starting to become comfortable enforcing them, which surprisingly was easier than I thought it would be. I think I've always had this thought that if I say no, people are going to be like, oh. But really, and maybe it's because we've been in a pandemic and everybody is burnt out, that the people around me went, oh yeah, okay, cool. Thanks for letting us know. And it wasn't a big deal. It hasn't been a big deal. So I think for me, that's the one thing that I've been surprised about coming, into the pandemic and coming out of it. I think I actually learned something that I will take forward, and that, I teach classes, I teach people all the time, enforce your boundaries, but, teaching something and doing it, they don't necessarily align all the time. So I've completely forgotten your question, Colin. I apologize.
No worries.
I think to speak on.
Oh, I'm sorry, Steve. I think Gigi needs to make an announcement.
Okay.
Before, we can continue on. Gigi, you said you had an announcement you needed to make.
Hi, everybody. For those of you that are attending the webinar, I will be putting a link in the chat for all of you to complete a short survey as we continue this amazing discussion with these wonderful panelists. I'm so grateful for all of you today for sharing your experiences. And if you can fill out the survey, you can also put in your email for an option to win a $20 Amazon gift card. So that will be coming shortly. Thank you.
Thank you, Gigi. Sorry for interrupting you, Steve, but we also only have 15 minutes, so I'll let you finish up your response to the question in the chat, and then we'll move on to our final question for everybody. Thank you.
I was going to speak to the point of Kimberly and Mary, just to talk about
the question that was asked earlier, right? Or
on motivation, just to speak to that point really fast.
Yeah.
It's also to just meet ourselves where we're at. We are in the middle of a pandemic. We're not in the same place that we normally would be at the best, which is oftentimes when we compare ourselves. And so to recognize that all these environmental factors, all these life stressors are playing a part, and that we're not going to be operating our best, so and that's okay. So I know a lot of students are continuing to take their normal course load like they would on campus, and then they're feeling bad about their grades or how they're performing or their lack of motivation. And it's to remember that that's not the place that we're at. That's the place that we would love to be at, yes, but that there's all these other factors at play that are affecting our mental health, that's affecting our brain cognition, that's affecting our feeling of connectedness. And to recognize that and to practice that self-empathy, to say, I'm not where that person was, this is where I am today. And to be okay with that, because, I mean, who would have expected us to be in a pandemic?
Yeah. Thank you, Steve, for your insights. Really appreciate it. And so now we're down to the last 15 minutes of this panel. And the last question I think that would be good, since we brought up all these concerns and issues that we are facing as students, the last question I want to posit is, what do we expect from the school leaders and teachers that they could do for you to support you right now? And I'll start off with Natasha. What do you feel school leaders and teachers could do to help support you the best right now?
Yeah, definitely. I think I have one professor that does a really good job of just like announcing different announcements of what's going on campus, different resources. Many times she's told her classes that there's the 6 counseling sessions and just referring us to the counselor's office. So I really enjoy that. And I think that more professors could incorporate that, whether it's announcements when we're live on Zoom or just posting the information within modules in Canvas. That's been something that's really helpful for me, and moving forward, just for staff, professors to just remember, like we've talked about, we're all going through a lot right now. And even though it may seem like, oh, you just go to class like in your bedroom, like, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that hard, but in reality, it does cause a lot of anxiety, can cause depression. So just being mindful of that as we continue online learning. And once we go back, that will also be a transition for students who have never been on campuses or who are transitioning just, back from being able to wake up and go to their computers to get on Zoom to having to now travel to campus. So just being mindful that we're all going through it together and working with us as students.
Thank you for that, Natasha. Alina, how do you feel school leaders and teachers can best support you?
As of right now, I actually really do enjoy the resources offered from the campus, and obviously faculty and professors that they offer. Office hours, additional help, and like probably just, it depends on the class you're in, really different resources I was saying. But I feel that I guess the one thing that could, in my opinion, be fixed is really like the professors really necessarily putting, I don't know how to really put in words, like basically trying to really understand if students really understand the course work going on, or that they're assigning, because I feel that there's so much assignments due at a certain time every day, and it just feels that everything's going so fast, even though we've all transitioned from obviously in person to online. And I know it probably could just be a personal issue, or maybe I'm just not used to doing online still as of right now. But I just feel that there's constantly so many different assignments after assignment, and there's not enough. Do you understand this? Do you know what's going on? Or like maybe we should go over it at the class to see if we all have the same answers, or if we're familiar with it, because it's just more of this assignment to do, this assignment to do, this is due, make sure you get it in, quiz on this day, exam on this day. And it's kind of overloading for me. I'm like, oh, I didn't really understand this. I didn't even know if I got the answers right. And I just feel like there should be more like additional, I guess, help on that end. And that was really all.
Thank you, Alina. And finally, to Lorena, what do you feel could be given to you to help best support you in your school journey?
Honestly, I have been supported from all of my professors, and even professors from last semester I still reach out to, and that's great. They've been great. Like Natasha said, we and her have a couple of classes together, and having a professor who gives you some time to deflect, and to speak on your feelings helps, right? But not all of us have that time. Not all of our professors have that time either. It's hard for everyone, professors, students, administration, our children, because no one knows how to deal with this. We learned like from one day to another. What I would like, because this is what I'm hearing from other students, student leaders or students who have been doing really well, who aren't or are slipping or not doing as well as they were before, take them into consideration. And if you're reaching out to the student and the student is still kind of like standoffish or doesn't want to talk, have your health or your therapist from your school reach out to them, because some of these students are feeling like they're letting their professors down, and that pressure is like, I felt that way at one point too. Like, oh my God, I went from A's to now I'm going down, struggling with the C's, trying to get these B's, even some F's, But again, another professor told me that, you're an A student and I know what your work, and I know that all of this has something to do with it. And by me hearing that, helped me to help me. And I was able to look in the mirror and say, no, girl, you got this. You are a smart student. You a badass. But because of everything that's going around, it's okay. Because if this wasn't going, if we didn't have pandemic, 4.0, like I'll be up there, presidential, award right there. But because I don't have that, I have to be nice to myself, right? But us students still feel that pressure and we don't talk about it. So what I'm asking for the professors is, if you see a student that is, not willing to talk, or you know something, have your therapist from your school reach out to them and remind them, we know your worth, but don't feel pressure that you shouldn't be feeling, but most of all, again, our professors are doing a great job. Shout out to the Oxnard professors, and it's not easy, and again, please, students, I'm the ASU president. I'm your voice. And if there's anything that you guys need help with, please reach out to me. I'm here for you guys. Okay. And so,
yeah, thank you.
That's it.
Thank you so much, Lorena. And like you guys have mentioned, a lot of the things that you stated for you, communication, being like communication especially, is what is highlighted in the student survey. A lot of students asked their professors to be more open to communication and recognizing the students' struggles. So I think it's an important point to bring back to the school leaders and teachers listening to this call, about to maintain your open communications with your students and continue to recognize that due to this pandemic, not all student opportunities are the same. Some are struggling, some are just fine. They just need to be reminded and keep knowing that we are still here. We want to be the best successful students we can be. They just need to understand our circumstances and where we're coming from. So yeah. And we're now approaching the final 5 minutes. So I think this would be a good time to ask if anyone has any additional comments or concerns about anything, like just about the conversations or related to COVID and remote learning. Do you guys have any extra ones? Or
I just want to really, I'm glad that this happened, and I hope that we're able to talk more on mental health throughout the year and have panels with the students, because we need to talk about it more. We need to make sure that we erase the stigma on it, so people who are going through stuff don't feel awkward or weird, and it could lead to something else. This is something that we live with our life, like putting on a sock, or saying hi to somebody, putting gas in the car. Just remember that whoever's out there dealing with something, you're not alone at all. Reach out. And again, thank you, OC and VC and VCCCD, for having this important discussion.
yeah, I think it's important, because it's one thing to say yes to yourself that yes, this is a pandemic, I should be taking care of myself, and I'm good. But it's a different thing when you're talking to other people, when you're expressing your feelings, especially when you've been isolated by yourself for so long. If no one else has any questions, I would just like to conclude by saying thank you to everyone coming to come out here, from the NAMI representative to the VC Mental Health to the OCAS and our student representatives. We have multiple events coming up this upcoming after this and during this Diversity and Culture Festival, and it's a great way to engage with the students and be a part of the community. So I encourage you guys to continue to stay here and attend our next webinars. I believe our next one would be, it's slipping my head. Gigi, could you inform everyone what's the next webinar?
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. So we have our Performance Monday, which will be starting at 11:30 with Brent Wilson and his group. And then we have at noon, Dr. Kathleen Yep from Pitzer College, and she's going to be talking about some of the negativity towards the AAPI community. And so she's going to be talking about a little bit what we've been talking about here, how to cope and how to become resilient to negativity and what we're all dealing with right now. So we got a couple things coming up quickly, and then later in this afternoon we have Professor Carlos Munoz. We have Yamina, who is the Afro-Caribbean dancer. She did such a great performance during Black History Month at Ventura College ASVC events. She's going to be joining us again. And then we have a presentation this afternoon from the ASL Club of Oxnard College, Understanding Autism. So we have a lot going on today. Thank you for being here with us and for celebrating with us.
And thank you. And finally, just to conclude, I want to thank all my fellow students and the students involved in the attendees. Without you, this conversation wouldn't happen, and these important topics that need to be discussed wouldn't be discussed. They would just be left in the forefront. So I want to thank you all very much. And this now concludes the student panel on COVID and culture. I want to thank you all once again. I've been thanking everyone so much, but thank you really so much for participating and attending and being a part of the conversation. Thank you.